Thanks for showing up for my McCabe. So as a geographer, I've always been fascinated by what makes countries tick. Not just the boundaries on a map, but the people, the places, the pressures, and the patterns that shape life within them. And when it comes to population studies, few places offer a more revealing or at times unsettling case study than Japan. So today's lecture explores a country that seems on the surface to have it all: advanced technology, strong infrastructure, and one of the highest life expectancies in the world. Yet beneath the polished surface lies a complex demographic dilemma. From aging pensioners turning to prison for survival, to middle-aged adults still living with elderly parents, and a growing number of young people opting out of work, marriage, or even human relationships altogether, Japan's experiencing a profound but quite significant societal shift. This lecture isn't just about birth rates and death rates. It's about ghost towns, robot companions, and a generation that's lying flat in the face of traditional expectations. Today we'll explore human geography in motion, a real-time case study of what happens when a country's social contract starts to crack under demographic strain. So, Japan's experiencing quite a profound demographic shift, marked by an increasingly aging population and a declining birth rate. As of 2024, individuals over 65 or older constitute nearly 1/3 of the total population, approximately 36.25 million people. And this trend has been developing over decades. In 2000, it was 18%, and 30% by 2020. By 2040, the figure is expected to reach 35%. A key aspect of this demographic transformation is the growing number of centenarians. Japan is now home to a record 80,000 individuals aged 100 or over, underscoring the nation's exceptional longevity. And at the same time, Japan's birth rate has been steadily declining. In 2024, only 720,000 births were recorded, the lowest in Japan's history, based against almost 1.6 million deaths. This decline, combined with rising mortality rates, has led to a startling natural population decrease. The working age population has been shrinking since the 90s, and projections indicate that by 2100, the median age of the population will be 55 years old, with the workforce comprising only half of the population. The demographic changes have profound implications for Japan's economy, workforce, healthcare, and infrastructure. A shrinking labour force reduces productivity and economic output. In 2023, Japan's labour force participation rate declined, with only 35% of companies prioritising workers over the age of 25, and the decline in the working age individuals limits innovation and economic dynamism. Moreover, the increasing number of retirees has escalated demand for pensions and healthcare services. Social security payments, particularly for Medicare and long-term care, are rising and are straining public finances. The financial burden on the working population intensifies as fewer workers support more retirees, threatening the sustainability of the pension scheme. Without reforms, this imbalance could lead to reduced benefits or increased contribution requirements, aka higher taxes. As well as updating Japan's healthcare system to cater to its aging population, with greater investment in oncology and geriatric care as opposed to predominantly natal and paediatric services, the aging population also necessitates adjustments to infrastructure and social services. Japan's increasingly recognizing that they need to adapt their urban spaces to an aging population. With one of the highest proportions of elderly, the country is facing the challenge of ensuring that its cities remain livable for older generations. And to address this, urban planning is evolving and creating more age-friendly environments that enhance the quality of life for seniors. A key area of focus has been public transportation. Japan's iconic train systems, particularly in cities like Tokyo and Osaka, have been designed with elderly passengers in mind. Many stations are now equipped with elevators, ramps, wider doorways, and slower escalators, which I hate, in order to aid aging people and people who need mobility devices. In recent years, Tokyo Metro has introduced these slower escalators in order to cater to old people. Additionally, many subway stations feature priority seating for elderly and those with disabilities, making it easier for seniors to travel in comfort. However, an increasing demand for elderly support services is placing a strain on their capacity and sustainability. Rural areas where population decrease is more pronounced face shortages of caregivers, volunteers, leaving many elderly residents without sufficient assistance. Government-funded social programs also face financial constraints, given the rising public spending on old age-related services. While some programs rely on private sector involvement and donations, long-term sustainability remains a challenge. To address this problem, Japan has been exploring some quite innovative solutions. For example, AI-powered elder care robots and expanded community-based caregiving models, as you can see here. But as Japan's population shrinks, the country is facing a crisis that is both eerie and unprecedented. Entire villages are disappearing, and millions of homes stand abandoned, left to decay because there are simply not enough people to live in them. These ghost houses, known as akiya, are a stark reminder of how deeply Japan's demographic decline is reshaping its landscape. The numbers are staggering. As of today, there are 8.5 million akiya scattered across the country, and that number is projected to rise sharply in the coming years. By 2033, it is expected that 1 in 3 homes in Japan will be empty. This means millions of properties once full of life and family history will sit unoccupied, slowly falling into ruin. And why is this happening? It all comes back to the demographics. Japan has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, and its population is not just shrinking, it's aging. The median age is now 49, one of the highest in the world, and fewer younger people means fewer home buyers. In rural areas where job opportunities are scarce and infrastructure is crumbling, young people are leaving in droves, heading for the cities in search of work. And the result, entire towns have vanished, and homes that once belonged to aging parents and grandparents are now abandoned, and no heirs are willing to take them on. In some cases, the homes are seen as more of a burden than an asset. Property taxes in Japan are very high, and this has led to an almost surreal situation. Homes are being sold for next to nothing, or even given away for free. Some towns are so desperate for new residents that they're literally paying people to move there. Municipalities in places like Nagano and Wakayama are offering subsidies of up to $10,000 per family willing to relocate and upgrade an old home. Some regions provide free land, tax breaks, or even monthly financial incentives to encourage younger new residents to come settle down. These demographic changes have profound implications for Japan's economy, workforce, healthcare system, and infrastructure. Oh, sorry, that's the last page. Sorry. But despite these offers, filling Japan's abandoned homes remains a difficult challenge. Even those in decent condition may not meet modern housing standards and require costly renovations that people are unwilling to take on. The ghost town phenomenon is more than just the issue of abandoned buildings. It's a symbol of Japan's broader demographic crisis. Without significant immigration or a sudden rise in birth rates, the population will continue to shrink, and more towns will disappear entirely. And the question is, what will Japan do with all this empty space? Will entire villages be left to decay, or will new policies bring these places back to life? One thing is certain, in a country known for its dense, bustling cities, the quiet emptiness of the abandoned homes is becoming an increasingly familiar sight. Japan must now face the reality that without drastic changes, its landscape, and perhaps even its future, may continue to fade away. Another significant political consequence of Japan's aging population is the emergence of the silver democracy, a system by which elderly voters wield disproportionate influence over national policies. With nearly 30% of Japan's population nearing 70 and above, older citizens form a powerful voting bloc, consistently turning out in higher numbers than younger generations. As a result, government policies tend to prioritize pensions, healthcare, and social security, while neglecting issues that could benefit younger people, such as education, child rearing support, and employment security. This has led to a growing intergenerational inequality, where the working age population bears the financial burden of supporting the elderly through high taxes and social security contributions, while receiving fewer long-term benefits. Additionally, Japan's excessive focus on senior welfare has contributed to economic stagnation, as policies aimed at stimulating workforce growth, such as immigration reform or digital transformation, remain particularly unpopular with older citizens. Many young Japanese, feeling sidelined, are disengaged from politics, further reinforcing this cycle. Across Japan, a quiet yet powerful shift is taking place. Young people are disengaging from work, from politics, or from the relentless pursuit of traditional lifestyles. They're not driven by laziness or ignorance, but rather by a deep disillusionment with a system that seems unwilling to acknowledge their struggles. For decades, Japan's economic model has thrived on a culture of hard work, discipline, and corporate loyalty. The unwritten rule was simple. If you dedicate your life to the company will, in return, take care of you. But in today's Japan, that social contract is starting to be broken. The phenomenon of karoshi, death by overwork, is more than just a tragic statistic. It's a warning sign of a work culture that demands everything yet offers little in return. Long hours, often unpaid, are expected. Wages, especially for younger workers, have remained stagnant. Job security is increasingly uncertain, and the path to home ownership or financial independence feels like an unreachable dream. In 2023, approximately 3,000 individuals died due to work-related causes, with 54 of those deaths directly attributed to overwork-induced factors. A 2024 white paper produced by the Japanese government highlighted that 883 people were recognized as suffering from mental health disorders related to the need for overwork, an increase in 173 cases from the previous year and the highest number on record. Within these cases, 79 involved suicides or attempted suicides. And the demanding work culture is further underscored by a government survey revealing that approximately 1 in 10 Japanese workers engage in over 80 hours of unpaid overtime a month, placing them at a heightened risk for karoshi. What does this lead to? A generation that is quite literally opting out. A generation that looks at the exhaustion that their parents suffered and say, no thanks. Instead of chasing promotions or clinging to companies that see them as disposable, many young Japanese are embracing minimalism and low-pressure lifestyles, a movement that echoes China's Pang Ping, or lying flat philosophy. They're choosing to work less, consume less, and expect less from a system that has consistently let them down. They're rejecting the notion that self-worth is tied to endless work and corporate loyalty. Some are leaving Tokyo for rural areas where the cost of living is lower and jobs are less demanding, something which could perhaps solve the ghost town phenomenon. Others turn to gig work, freelancing, or part-time jobs like food delivery, preferring flexibility over the stability that comes with a corporate job. And yet, perhaps the most concerning aspect of this engagement is the political apathy that it is fueling. Young people see a political system that caters overwhelmingly to the elderly, where policies on welfare, pensions, and healthcare take priority over reforms on labour laws, wages, or affordable housing in cities. They see their votes outnumbered and their voices ignored. So why participate? Why fight a battle that seems already lost? Critics argue that unless Japan rebalances its policies to support younger and older generations equitably, its long-term economic stability and social cohesion is going to be at risk. And the challenge lies in creating a system where political representation and economic policies align with the needs of all generations rather than just a dominant older demographic, hopefully allowing economic growth to return. To mitigate the economic impact of a shrinking workforce, Japan is encouraging older individuals to remain in the labour market. Policies promoting lifelong learning and skill development aim to keep elderly workers engaged and productive. Flexible work arrangements and age-friendly workplaces are being implemented to accommodate this demographic. Additionally, Japan is rethinking its traditionally strict immigration policies to address labour shortages, particularly in healthcare and construction. In April 2019, the government introduced the specified, skilled worker visa program, allowing foreign workers, many from the Philippines, Vietnam, and China, to fill gaps in the 14 industries facing acute labour shortages. The program offers 2 visa categories, one permitting temporary residence and the other allowing long-term residency and family accompaniment, creating a pathway to permanent settlement. While these policy adjustments signal a gradual shift towards a more open labour market, resistance remains. Under new Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, thank you very much, Ricky, appointed in October 2025, the government signalled a shift in tone. While still acknowledging the need for foreign labour, Takaichi emphasised orderly coexistence and announced that the intake of foreign nationals would be managed appropriately, including the setting of explicit limits on numbers, stronger enforcement by compliance by foreign nationals, and a stricter oversight of visas and resident status. She has instructed a panel to draft revisions to policies on foreign workers and visa extensions, with a view to publishing a basic policy by July next year. Japan has also historically valued its homogeneity. Many citizens fear that increased immigration may lead to a cultural erosion. A 2019 Cabinet Office survey found that while 40% of respondents supported admitting more foreign labour, many expressed concerns about crime, social differences, and increased strain on public resources. Reports of social tensions between foreign workers and local communities, particularly in rural areas, have reinforced scepticism. Some workers worry that foreign labour could lower wages in lower skilled industries, while labour rights groups warn of potential exploitation. Conservative politicians argue that Japan should focus on increasing birth rates and automation rather than relying on immigration. Expanding immigration also requires investments in things like language education, housing, healthcare, and legal support to ensure successful integration. Many Japanese citizens support guest worker programs but oppose pathways to permanent residency, fearing long-term demographic shifts. And these thoughts are especially popular among the elderly population, who make up the largest percentage of Japan's voter base. But another particularly troubling consequence of Japan's aging society is the growing number of elderly individuals, especially women, who deliberately commit minor crimes to secure imprisonment. Between 2003 and 2022, the number of inmates aged 65 and older nearly quadrupled. In 2022, over 80% of elderly female inmates were incarcerated for theft-related offences. Many view prison as a refuge from financial hardship, loneliness, and inadequate social support. This modern-day trend is driven by several factors, but most significantly, poverty. Around 20% of Japanese individuals over 65 live in poverty, struggling to afford basic necessities. While Japan has a national pension system, many elderly people receive insufficient support from it. The system's benefits are relatively low, and people who have irregular work histories, particularly women and part-time workers, receive minimal payouts. This leads to financial insecurity in old age for those who cannot rely on a strong pension. Traditionally, the elderly in Japan have relied on their children for financial support. However, this is becoming less common due to smaller family sizes, with fewer children available to provide for their elderly parents. However, the breakdown of multi-generational living also exacerbates this issue, leading to social isolation, where many elderly individuals experience profound loneliness, leading them to seek companionship and structure within prison walls. As this traditional family structure breaks down and community support weakens, some seniors view prison as their only source of stability. There's also a significant rural-urban divide which can be seen in regards to poverty, with many of the nation's elderly inmates hailing from the countryside. Many of them have worked in the past in low-paying jobs without the benefits of a strong pension or retirement savings. After retiring, they may have limited financial resources and few opportunities for part-time work, which can lead to poverty. Prisons provide regular meals, healthcare, and a sense of community. Takeyoshi Shiranaga, an officer at Tagochi Women's Prison, noted that now we have to change their diapers, help them bathe, eat. At this point, it's more like a nursing home than a prison full of convicted criminals. He added that some inmates prefer to stay in prison due to free medical treatment they receive, which they cannot afford outside. Although Japan has a universal healthcare system, out-of-pocket costs, including for long-term care, can still be burdensome for those on a very low fixed income. Although the government has implemented community centres and housing benefits, these programs have limited success. Many seniors lack support networks after release, leading to reoffending and reincarceration. The issue is likely to continue as Japan has one of the highest proportions of lifelong single individuals among developed nations, with over 25% of men and 20% of women in their 50s having never married as of 2020. This trend, which has accelerated in recent decades, is driven by a combination of economic instability and ever-increasing demanding work culture and evolving social norms away from traditionalism. This has led to another trend exacerbating Japan's demographic crisis, which is the rise of parasite singles. This coin termed by a sociologist in the 90s refers to young adults who, despite having jobs, remain financially dependent on their parents. Today, this trend extends into middle age, with many individuals in their 30s, 40s, or even 50s continuing to live at home with parents. Some 4.5 million Japanese between the ages of 35 and 55 are still in their childhood home. The primary reason for this prolonged dependence is economic insecurity. Japan's labour market has shifted, and many young workers face precarious employment with low wages or limited career progression. This financial instability makes it difficult to afford independent living, marriage, or even starting a family. Living with parents often reduces a financial burden and provides a relatively comfortable lifestyle, but it also discourages financial independence and delays milestones like home ownership and marriage. Cultural expectations also reinforce this trend. In Japan, it's not uncommon for unmarried children, especially females, to remain with their parents until marriage. and this tradition persists despite modern economic changes. While co-residence is seen as mutually beneficial, parents enjoy companionship and support, and adult children benefit from reduced living expenses, it has a long-term economic and social consequence, one of which is a looming welfare crisis. As Japan's population continues to age, caregiving responsibilities traditionally carried out by families are being strained, particularly as many parasite singles lack financial resources or skills to provide adequate care for their elderly parents. Currently, many aging parents support their unmarried adult children financially, covering housing, food, and daily expenses. However, when these parents pass away, the dependent children often find themselves without sufficient income or support, leading to economic hardship, homelessness, and an increased demand for government assistance. The 80-50 problem illustrates this crisis, where parents in their 80s support unemployed children in their 50s. The situation places immense pressure on Japan's welfare system, which is already strained by an aging population and a shrinking workforce. Beyond financial concerns, these issues present psychological and social challenges. Many parasite singles lack the skills or work experience needed to transition into independent living after parents' deaths, leading to social isolation, depression, and even suicide. Another odd consequence of this demographic dilemma can be seen in the dating market. As marriage rates plummet and social isolation rates rise, more young Japanese are turning away from traditional relationships and instead forming emotional bonds with artificial intelligence. AI girlfriends and boyfriends, holographic spouses, and digital companionship are no longer just fantasies from futuristic novels. They're increasingly becoming substitutes for real-world relationships. Japan's demographic crisis is well documented. The birth rate has fallen to a historic low of just 1.26 children per woman, far below the replacement rate of 2.1. In 2022, the number of new marriages dropped to just over 500,000, the lowest ever recorded. Fewer people are dating, fewer people are getting married, and fewer people are having children. Many factors contribute to this trend: financial insecurity, long working hours, shifting gender demographics, and deep-rooted sense of social isolation. The pressures of maintaining a traditional relationship, both emotionally and financially, have driven many young people to seek alternative forms of companionship, ones that offer emotional connection without the perceived burden of a real relationship. For some, that alternative is AI. AI-powered companies, companions and holographic girlfriends have become an industry of their own. One of the most well-known examples is Gatebox, a Japanese company that developed a holographic home assistant featuring a virtual character such as Hatsune Miku. You're aware? Okay. An anime pop star. Users can interact with these holograms through speech, text, receive good morning messages, affectionate greetings, and even encouragement through the day. The appeal is simple. These AI partners are always supportive, never demanding, and exist solely to provide comfort. This digital love phenomenon reached global headlines in 2018 when a Japanese man named Akihiko Kondo made news by holding a wedding ceremony to his holographic wife, Hatsune Miku. He spent nearly $17,500 US on the wedding ceremony, invited guests, and received a symbolic marriage certificate from Gatebox. While not legally recognized, his marriage was very real to him. And he's not alone. Over 4,000 others in Japan have entered similar virtual marriages, cementing their emotional connections with AI characters rather than human partners. And this growing preference for AI companionship highlights a deeper social issue: rising loneliness and disengagement from human relationships. A 2019 survey from Japan's National Institute of Population and Social Security Research found that nearly 40% of Japanese people in their 20s and 30s had never dated anyone. Many cite a lack of interest or fear of rejection, while others point to financial struggles or overwhelming work commitments. But in response, AI partners offer a risk-free alternative, one where emotional needs can be met without the complexities of human interaction. And while some argue that AI relationships help those that struggle with social anxiety, others warn of a long-term consequence. The widespread shift towards digital companionship may further contribute to Japan's declining birth rate, exacerbating the demographic crisis. If more people choose AI over real relationships, the nation's shrinking population could reduce even quicker. Psychologists also warn that prolonged reliance on AI relationships can make human connections even harder to navigate. And ultimately, Japan's struggle with declining marriage and birth rates is intrinsically linked to an aging population, economic dependency, and demographic decline. Without significant structural reforms to improve job stability, increase wages, and enable more inclusion, the demographic challenges are only going to intensify. Japan's dilemma is not just about numbers. It's about the profound human consequences of a society with its own population structure. From elderly citizens committing petty crimes for the security of prison, and middle-aged adults still dependent on their aging parents, to a younger generation retreating into virtual relationships, each trend reflects population struggling to find a purpose, a connection, and stability in the face of rapid change. Now, the title of the lecture may sound humorous or a little provocative, but the reality it reflects is quite sobering. When the support systems of youth, work, and family unravel, people seek refuge, whether that is behind bars, behind the duvet covers, or behind screens. Without reforms that address aging, youth disenfranchisement, economic insecurity, and social alienation, Japan risks becoming a nation of the lonely and left behind, a nation who actually ghosted real life. Now, as we've seen, Japan's demographic crisis isn't just a story about aging or numbers, it's about connections. It shows what happens when a society forgets to care, listen, and belong. Communities fracture, people withdraw, and loneliness becomes normalized. That's the same emotional vacuum where bullying takes root, where people feel unseen or undervalued. This week, as we focus on Anti-Bullying Week, Japan offers a quiet warning and a challenge. Whether in a country or a classroom, nobody should ever feel ghosted by those around them. Building connections is not a luxury, it's what keeps us human. Thank you.